Ivan barely crossed the doorway before a hand crushed over his mouth and slammed him into the wall. His maid's voice shook in his ear. "Keep quiet. There are armed men inside waiting for you." And through the crack of the closet door, he saw his fiancée smiling while scheduling his death. The question wasn't who betrayed him. It was whether he'd make it out alive. If this story pulled you in, go ahead and subscribe so you never miss what's ahead. I've got another unforgettable story coming tomorrow. And while you're here, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing people tuned in from all over the world. Okay, let's get back into it. Ivan Pontes stepped into his penthouse apartment because his fiancée promised him a surprise. His keys were still in his hand when someone rushed him from the side. A palm clamped over his mouth. His back hit the wall hard. "Don't move," his maid whispered, eyes wide with terror. "There are men inside this house waiting to kill you. Brenda Raymond. She shouldn't be this close, shouldn't be touching him." But her grip was iron, her body pressed against his to keep him pinned in the dim entryway. Ivan's instinct screamed to fight back, to push her off, to demand answers. But something in her face stopped him. Not fear for herself, fear for him. She was small compared to him, her maid's uniform still crisp despite the panic radiating from her frame. Dark hair pulled back tight. Hands that had served him coffee 1,000 mornings now forcing him into silence. Her other hand gestured frantically, "Stay down, stay quiet," as she glanced past him toward the living room. Ivan's pulse hammered in his throat. He'd walked into his own home countless times, knew every shadow, every creak, every angle of light. But now, frozen against the wall with Brenda's hand over his mouth, everything felt wrong. The air was too still, the silence too deliberate. She dragged him sideways into the coat closet near the entrance and pulled the door almost shut, leaving just enough space to see into the hallway. Her hand stayed firm over his lips. Her breath came fast and shallow against his ear. "I'm going to move my hand," she whispered, barely audible. "Don't say a word. Don't make a sound. Nod if you understand." Ivan nodded. Her palm lifted slowly, ready to clamp back down if he so much as inhaled wrong, but he stayed silent. Brenda positioned herself so they could both see through the narrow gap. Her body was tense, coiled, like she'd bolt at the first wrong move. Through the crack, Ivan could see into his own living room. Movement near the windows. A shadow shifted too tall, too unfamiliar. Then a man stepped into full view, tall, armed, checking his watch like he was early for an appointment. Ivan's stomach dropped. The man wore tactical black, a pistol holstered at his hip, another in his hand held low and ready. He moved like someone comfortable with violence, like someone who'd done this before. He turned his head, scanning the room with mechanical precision, then muttered something into a radio clipped to his shoulder. Footsteps echoed from deeper in the apartment, slow, unhurried, confident. Ivan heard Vanessa's voice first. She was on the phone, speaking low but clear enough to carry through the open floor plan. "He should be here any minute." "Yes," I confirmed. "He's coming straight home." A pause, then a soft laugh. "Relax. He won't suspect anything. He never does." Ivan's knees nearly buckled. Brenda's hand shot out, gripping his wrist to steady him. Her nails dug in, anchoring him to the moment, forcing him to stay upright. Her eyes locked onto his, filled with a clarity that cut through the fog of shock spreading through his chest. Vanessa appeared in the hallway, phone still pressed to her ear. She was wearing the dress he'd bought her last month, hair loose around her shoulders, smiling, relaxed. She looked like she was planning a dinner party, not an execution. "The guys are in position," she said into the phone. "Living room, bedroom, garage exit. He can't leave." Another pause. "No, Brenda's not a problem. She's just the maid. She won't interfere." Ivan's vision blurred at the edges. The dizziness, the headaches he'd been ignoring for weeks, the way Vanessa always insisted on making his coffee herself, on pouring his drinks, on serving him meals with that warm, loving smile, the strange questions about his schedule, his meetings, his security rotations. It wasn't love. It wasn't care. It was reconnaissance. He thought back to 3 days ago when he'd felt so weak he couldn't get out of bed. Vanessa had been so concerned, so attentive. She'd brought him soup, water, pills she said were vitamins. He'd taken them without question. Why would he question her? She was supposed to be the one person in his life who wanted nothing from him except him. Brenda's fingers dug deeper into his wrist. Her other hand rose slowly, finger pressed to her lips in warning. Another man walked past the closet, close enough that Ivan could hear the fabric of his jacket brush against the doorframe, close enough to smell gun oil and cigarette smoke. The man stopped. Ivan held his breath. Brenda didn't move, didn't blink. She stared at Ivan with an intensity that felt like a command. Do not breathe. Do not exist. The man's radio crackled. Anything? Negative. Front entry's clear. He's not here yet. He will be. The woman said 20 minutes. We've got time. The man moved on, boots heavy against the marble floor. Vanessa's voice drifted closer. I have to go. He'll be here soon, and I need to look surprised. She laughed again, light and easy. Yes, I'll call you after. This'll be over by tonight. Over by tonight. Ivan's whole body went cold. Vanessa walked past the closet. So close Ivan could see the bracelet he'd given her for her birthday glinting on her wrist. She paused in front of the hallway mirror, checking her reflection, adjusting her lipstick, preparing to greet him, preparing to watch him die. She looked beautiful. She looked happy. Brenda leaned in, her lips almost touching Ivan's ear, and whispered the words that made everything real. If you walk out there now, you won't walk out at all. Ivan stared through the gap at his own apartment. The place he'd fortified, the place he'd trusted, the art on the walls he'd chosen, the furniture Vanessa had rearranged, the kitchen where she'd made him breakfast this morning, kissed him goodbye, told him she loved him. And just like that, Ivan Pontus understood. The most dangerous place in the world wasn't a rival's territory. It wasn't a back alley ambush or a boardroom betrayal. It was here, in his own home, with the woman he'd let inside every wall he'd ever built. And if not for Brenda Raymond, the maid he barely noticed, the one who cleaned his floors and restocked his towels without a word, he would already be dead. Ivan had never been a man who believed in love at first sight. He'd built an empire on suspicion. Every handshake was a potential betrayal. Every smile hid a knife. Every word spoken in his presence was weighed, measured, analyzed for hidden meaning. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford, and sentiment was a weakness that got men like him killed. For 15 years, he'd lived that way, alone in a fortress of his own making. The penthouse had been designed with paranoia as its blueprint: bulletproof windows, reinforced walls, biometric locks on every door, security cameras in every corner except his bedroom and bathroom, the only privacy he allowed himself. 3 escape routes, panic buttons hidden in 6 different locations, a gun safe in the closet, another under the bed, a third behind the false panel in the kitchen. He'd lived there for 8 years without ever feeling unsafe. Brenda Raymond had been his only constant. She'd come with references from families he trusted, worked quietly, never asked questions, never gossiped, never lingered where she wasn't needed. She kept his space clean, his refrigerator stocked, his dry cleaning organized. She was invisible in the way good help should be invisible. He paid her well. She did her job. That was the extent of their relationship, until Vanessa. Ivan had met her at a gallery opening he'd attended only because a business associate insisted. He'd been bored within 10 minutes, nursing a glass of whiskey, and planning his exit when she'd appeared beside him. You hate it too, she'd said, not as a question. He'd looked at her then, really looked. Blonde hair that caught the light, green eyes that seemed genuinely amused rather than predatory, a dress that was elegant without trying too hard. She wasn't performing, wasn't posturing, she was just there. The art or the people? He'd asked. Both. She gestured to a canvas covered in aggressive red slashes. That's supposed to be about rage and societal collapse. I think it's just bad. He'd laughed. Actually laughed. He couldn't remember the last time that had happened. They'd talked for an hour. She was smart, worked in art acquisitions, traveled frequently, knew wine and literature and history. But she didn't show off her knowledge like a weapon. She asked questions, listened to his answers. Made him feel like what he said actually mattered. When he'd asked for her number, she'd hesitated just long enough to make it feel real. I don't usually date men who look like they could have me killed, she'd said, smiling. I don't usually date, he'd replied. She'd given him her number anyway. The first month was careful. Dinners at restaurants where he knew the owners, walks in public parks, phone calls that lasted hours but revealed nothing critical. Ivan had been cautious, running background checks, watching for inconsistencies, testing her reactions to questions designed to expose lies. She'd passed every test. By month 2, he'd started to relax. Vanessa never pushed, never asked about his work directly, never demanded to know where he was or who he was with. She had her own life, her own career, her own friends. She didn't cling, didn't manipulate, didn't play games. She just existed beside him. Easily. Naturally. In month 3, she'd met Brenda for the first time. Ivan had invited Vanessa to the penthouse for dinner, something he'd never done with anyone before. Brenda had been in the kitchen, preparing the meal he'd requested. Vanessa had walked in, extended her hand, and introduced herself like Brenda was a person worth knowing. "You keep this place beautiful," Vanessa had said, genuine warmth in her voice. "Ivan's lucky to have you." Brenda had smiled politely, shaken her hand, and returned to her work. But Ivan had noticed the way Brenda watched Vanessa that night, carefully, quietly, like she was taking notes. He should have paid attention to that. By month 4, Vanessa had started staying over. Not every night she had her own apartment, her own routines, but enough that her presence became familiar, comfortable. She'd leave clothes in his closet, books on his nightstand, her favorite coffee in his kitchen. She'd wake up beside him and make breakfast while he showered. She'd ask about his day and actually listen to his answers. She'd made him feel normal. Like maybe he wasn't just a collection of enemies and contingency plans. Like maybe he deserved something softer than survival. In month 5, she'd asked if she could move in. They'd been lying in bed, her head on his chest, his fingers running through her hair. "I hate going back to my place," she'd said quietly. "It doesn't feel like home anymore." "This does." He'd hesitated. Every instinct told him to say no, to keep distance, to maintain separation. But when he'd looked at her face open, vulnerable, hopeful, those instincts had felt like cowardice. "Okay," he'd said. "Move in." She'd smiled like he'd given her the world. Brenda had said nothing when Vanessa's belongings arrived. She'd simply reorganized the closets, made space in the bathroom cabinets, adjusted her cleaning schedule to accommodate another person, professional, efficient, silent. But Ivan had caught her watching Vanessa sometimes. The way Brenda would pause in doorways when Vanessa was on the phone. The way she'd linger in the kitchen when Vanessa made Ivan's coffee. The way her eyes would track Vanessa's movements through the apartment like she was memorizing patterns. Ivan had dismissed it as territorial behavior. Brenda had been there first. Vanessa was new. Of course there would be adjustment. He'd been so stupid. Because while he was falling in love, or whatever passed for love, in a man who'd forgotten how to feel it, Vanessa had been working. Studying his routines, mapping his security, learning which doors he used, which routes he took, which guards he trusted, which nights he came home late. She'd asked innocent questions. "Do you always meet with your accountant on Tuesdays? Why do you prefer the south elevator? How long has Brenda worked for you?" He'd answered them all, freely, happily, because she'd made him believe she cared. And the whole time, Brenda had been watching, listening, seeing what Ivan was too blinded by affection to see. Now, pressed against him in the darkness of a closet, her hand still gripping his wrist like a lifeline, Brenda Raymond was the only reason he was still breathing. Ivan's chest tightened with a shame so heavy it felt like drowning. He'd trusted the wrong woman, and it was going to cost him everything. Brenda Raymond had learned to be invisible a long time ago. It was a skill she'd perfected over 20 years of domestic work in homes where people spoke freely because they forgot she had ears, where secrets spilled across dinner tables while she poured wine, where powerful men made dangerous deals on phone calls while she dusted shelves 3 feet away. Invisibility kept her employed, kept her safe, kept her useful. But invisibility also gave her information. And information, she'd learned, was the difference between survival and becoming collateral damage. She'd known something was wrong with Vanessa within 2 weeks of the woman moving in. It wasn't anything obvious. Vanessa was careful, too careful. The way she'd rearrange items on shelves and then photograph them with her phone, claiming she was redecorating ideas. The way she'd ask Brenda questions about Ivan's schedule while pretending to make small talk. Does he usually work late on Thursdays? Which car service does he prefer? Does he ever come home unexpectedly? Normal questions from a girlfriend learning her partner's rhythms. Except Vanessa's eyes were always sharper than her smile. Brenda had worked for dangerous men before. She knew what real affection looked like versus performance. She'd seen wives who genuinely loved their husbands, and she'd seen wives who were waiting for the right moment to cash out. Vanessa had the mechanics of love down perfectly. The touches, the laughter, the morning kisses, but there was something rehearsed about it. Something that felt like a job well done, rather than genuine emotion. Still, Brenda had said nothing. It wasn't her place. She was the maid. Her job was to clean, organize, and disappear. Ivan Pontes paid her generously to mind her business, and she'd survived 2 decades in this world by doing exactly that. But 3 days ago, everything changed. Brenda had been in the laundry room folding Ivan's shirts when she'd heard Vanessa on the phone in the hallway. The door was open just a crack. Vanessa must have thought she was alone. "He's been sick all week," Vanessa had said, voice low. I've been keeping the doses small enough that he just thinks it's stress. No, he hasn't seen a doctor. I convinced him it's just exhaustion. Brenda's hands had frozen mid-fold. The timeline's still good, Vanessa continued. I'll call him home early on the 10th. Tell him I have a surprise. He'll come. He always comes when I ask. A pause. Then a quiet laugh. Yes, I'm sure. He trusts me completely. Brenda had set the shirt down carefully, silently, her heart pounding in her ears. She'd moved to the crack in the door and watched Vanessa pace the hallway, phone pressed to her ear, completely unguarded. 4 men should be enough for the apartment, Vanessa said. He doesn't keep guards inside, just the building security. And I've already mapped the exits. Living room, bedroom, garage. Cover all 3 and he's got nowhere to go. Another pause. Brenda? She's not a threat. She's just the help. She won't do anything. The help won't do anything. Brenda had stood there, pressed against the laundry room wall, listening to a woman casually plan her employer's murder while dismissing her as irrelevant. She should have been angry, should have been insulted. But all she felt was cold, calculated clarity. Vanessa had made a mistake. She'd underestimated the invisible woman who'd served her coffee every morning. After Vanessa had walked away, Brenda had stood in that laundry room for 10 full minutes, weighing her options. She could run, pack her things, disappear, find work somewhere else. She'd done it before when situations got dangerous. Survival first, that was the rule. She could tell Ivan, but would he believe her? He was in love, or whatever men like Ivan called it when they finally let their guard down. He'd ask for proof, evidence, and Brenda had nothing but overheard whispers and instinct. She could call the police, but what would she say? That she overheard a phone call that might have been about anything? That she had a bad feeling about her employer's girlfriend? They'd dismiss her in minutes, or she could stay, watch, wait, and be ready. Brenda had chosen to stay. For the next 3 days, she'd kept her routines exactly the same. She'd cleaned, cooked, organized, and smiled politely at Vanessa when their paths crossed. She'd shown no suspicion, no concern, no awareness, but she'd also started paying attention to everything. She'd noted which rooms Vanessa spent time in when Ivan was gone. She'd watched Vanessa take photos of the security panel by the front door, the keypad for the garage, the lock on Ivan's office. She'd seen Vanessa test the windows, check sightlines, pace the hallways like she was memorizing distances. Vanessa was building a blueprint, and Brenda was watching her do it. Yesterday, Vanessa had made another call. Brenda had been in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, when she'd heard Vanessa's voice from the living room. Tomorrow, February 10th. I'll call him around 3 and tell him to come home early. He'll be here by 4. A pause. Yes, I'm certain. He'll come alone. He always does when I ask him to. Brenda had gripped the knife tighter, forcing her hands to stay steady. You'll have at least an hour before anyone realizes he's missing, Vanessa continued. I'll be gone by then. Account transfer happens the moment you confirm it's done. That's when Brenda had understood the full picture. This wasn't just a hit. It was a transaction. Vanessa had been paid to deliver Ivan Pontus to his executioners, paid well enough to risk everything, and today was the day. This morning, Brenda had watched Vanessa call Ivan, voice sweet and excited, telling him she had a surprise that couldn't wait. She'd watched Vanessa end the call, check the time, and smile to herself like she'd just won something. Then, an hour ago, the men had arrived. 4 of them, just like Vanessa had said. They'd entered through the service entrance, the one Vanessa had unlocked from the inside. They'd moved through the apartment with practiced efficiency, positioning themselves exactly where Vanessa had told them to. Living room, bedroom hallway, garage exit. Brenda had been in the kitchen when they'd arrived. One of them had looked at her, dismissed her instantly, and turned away. Just the help, not a threat. She'd stayed in the kitchen, hands shaking, mind racing. She could still leave, slip out through the service entrance while they were distracted, disappear before the violence started. But then she'd thought about Ivan Pontes, the man who'd never been cruel to her, who'd paid her fairly, respected her space, trusted her with his home. The man who'd been so lonely for so long that he'd let a beautiful liar walk through every defense he'd ever built. He didn't deserve to die because he'd wanted to be loved. So when Brenda had heard the elevator chime when she'd realized Ivan was here, early, walking into an execution he didn't know was waiting, she'd made her choice. She'd run to the entryway, grabbed him, silenced him, saved him. And now, pressed against him in the darkness of a closet, her hand still covering his mouth, Brenda Raymond was no longer invisible. She was the only thing standing between Ivan Pontus and a bullet. They couldn't stay in the closet forever. Ivan's breathing had steadied, but Brenda could feel the rage building in him, tight, coiled, dangerous. His jaw was clenched so hard she could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. His eyes tracked every shadow moving past the crack in the door with the focus of a predator forced into prey's position. She knew that look. She'd seen it in other men moments before they did something catastrophically stupid. Brenda leaned closer, her lips nearly touching his ear. "We need to move, now, while they think you're not here yet." Ivan's eyes snapped to hers. He nodded once, sharp and controlled. She slowly released her grip on his mouth, her hand hovering close in case he forgot himself and spoke. But he remained silent, watching her with an intensity that made it clear he was letting her lead. For now. Brenda pressed her eye to the crack again. The armed man in the living room had moved toward the windows, back turned. Vanessa had disappeared deeper into the apartment, probably to the bedroom to wait. The hallway was clear for the moment. "The service corridor," Brenda whispered. "Behind the kitchen. It leads to the back stairwell. They'll have it covered." Ivan breathed back. "Maybe, but it's our only chance. The elevator's too exposed, and the front door is..." Footsteps. Heavy. Close. Brenda's hand shot back over Ivan's mouth as a second armed man walked past the closet, this one speaking into his radio. Position check. Sound off. A crackle of static. Living room clear. Another voice. Bedroom hallway secure. A third. Garage exit locked down. Copy. Target should arrive in 15 minutes. Stay sharp. The man moved on, boots echoing against the marble floor. 15 minutes. They thought they still had 15 minutes before Ivan arrived. Brenda pulled her hand away again. "They're expecting you later. If we move now." A door opened somewhere deeper in the apartment. Vanessa's voice called out, closer than before. "Brenda, are you still here?" Ivan's whole body went rigid. Brenda felt him start to move, felt the violence coiling in his muscles, ready to explode. She grabbed his arm, her nails digging in hard enough to hurt, and shook her head frantically. "Not yet. Not yet. Brenda?" Vanessa's footsteps approached the kitchen. "I thought you'd left already. I gave you the afternoon off, remember?" Brenda's mind raced. She had to answer. If she didn't, Vanessa would come looking. And if Vanessa found the closet door closed when it was usually open, she squeezed Ivan's arm once stay, and then slipped out of the closet before he could stop her. She pulled the door shut behind her, leaving it open just a crack, and stepped into the hallway. Her heart hammered so hard she was sure Vanessa would hear it, but she kept her face calm, neutral, professional. Vanessa appeared from the kitchen, surprised. "Oh, you're still here." "I was just finishing the laundry," Brenda said, voice steady despite the terror screaming through her veins. "I'll leave now." Vanessa studied her for a moment, something calculating flickering behind those green eyes. Then she smiled, warm, friendly, completely false. "No rush. Actually, could you help me with something first? I'm trying to move the credenza in the bedroom. It's heavier than I thought." A test. Brenda could feel it. Vanessa was testing her, watching for any sign that something was wrong. "Of course," Brenda said. She followed Vanessa down the hallway, away from the closet where Ivan was hidden, every step feeling like a betrayal. But she had no choice. If she refused, if she ran, Vanessa would know something was wrong. And then the men would search the apartment. They'd find Ivan in seconds. The bedroom was at the far end of the penthouse. As they walked, Brenda saw one of the armed men positioned in the hallway near Ivan's office. He nodded at Vanessa as they passed. Vanessa nodded back, casual and familiar. They were working together, completely synchronized. In the bedroom, Vanessa gestured to the heavy wooden credenza against the wall. "I want it moved to the other side, near the window." Brenda knew there was no credenza near the window in any of Vanessa's design photos. This was busy work, a way to keep Brenda occupied, a way to make sure she wasn't where she shouldn't be when Ivan arrived. "The window?" Brenda asked, playing along. "Better light," Vanessa said smoothly. She checked her phone, then slipped it into her pocket. "I want everything perfect for when Ivan gets home. He's had such a hard week." The casual cruelty of it, the way Vanessa spoke about him with affection while planning his murder, made Brenda's stomach turn. They moved the credenza together, Brenda's mind racing through scenarios. Ivan was still in the closet, alone, probably seconds away from doing something reckless. She needed to get back to him, needed to get them both out before. "You've worked for Ivan a long time, haven't you?" Vanessa asked suddenly. Brenda looked up. Vanessa was watching her with that same calculating expression, like she was solving a puzzle. 8 years, Brenda replied. Do you like working for him? He's a good employer. He trusts you. It wasn't a question. Brenda kept her expression neutral. I do my job. Vanessa smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You're very loyal. I admire that. She tilted her head slightly. You'd tell me if something was wrong, wouldn't you? If you saw something strange or concerning? The room felt smaller suddenly, tighter. Brenda met Vanessa's gaze directly. What would be wrong? For a moment, they just stared at each other. Two women who'd served the same man in different ways, now standing on opposite sides of something deadly. Then Vanessa's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and her smile widened. He's on his way. He just texted. He'll be here in 5 minutes. Brenda's blood went cold. 5 minutes. But Ivan was already here, already inside. And in 5 minutes, when he didn't arrive, when Vanessa realized something was wrong. You can go now, Vanessa said, her tone dismissive. I want to surprise him alone. Brenda nodded, turned, and walked toward the bedroom door, her mind screaming. She had to get to Ivan, had to get him out, had to. A hand grabbed her arm. Brenda spun. Vanessa was standing closer than she should be, her grip firm, her smile gone. Where were you when I called for you? Vanessa asked quietly. Really? Brenda's heart stopped. The laundry room, she said. I told you. The laundry room is on the other side of the apartment. You came from the front hallway. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Why were you near the front door, Brenda? The silence stretched between them like a blade, and somewhere in the distance, Brenda heard the closet door creak open. The gunshot shattered the silence before Brenda could answer. It came from the front of the apartment, a sharp crack that echoed through the penthouse like thunder. Vanessa's head whipped toward the sound, her grip loosening on Brenda's arm for just a second. That second was enough. Brenda yanked free and ran. She sprinted down the hallway toward the chaos, her mind screaming one thought. Ivan, what did you do? Behind her, Vanessa shouted. He's here! He's already here! Brenda rounded the corner into the living room and saw everything unfolding in terrible slow motion. Ivan had emerged from the closet, had obviously tried to reach the service corridor while Brenda was gone. But the man who'd been positioned in the living room had spotted him. Now they were locked in a violent struggle near the kitchen entrance. Ivan's hand wrapped around the man's wrist, forcing the gun toward the ceiling. The weapon discharged again, another deafening crack. Plaster rained down from the ceiling. Move! Ivan roared when he saw Brenda. The second armed man appeared from the bedroom hallway, weapon raised. Brenda didn't think. She grabbed a heavy crystal vase from the console table and hurled it. It struck the man's shoulder, not enough to stop him, but enough to make him stumble, his shot going wide. Ivan used the distraction. He twisted hard, slamming the first man against the wall with brutal force. The gun clattered to the floor. Ivan dove for it. Garage! Brenda screamed. Go! She didn't wait to see if he followed. She ran for the kitchen, hearing footsteps pounding behind her. Ivan's, she hoped, not the gunman's. The service door was ahead. The one that led to the back stairwell and down to the parking garage. Another shot exploded behind them. Wood splintered from the doorframe as Brenda crashed through it. Ivan was right behind her, the stolen gun in his hand, his face a mask of focused rage. They hit the stairwell at a dead run. How many? Ivan gasped as they descended. 4, maybe more by now. Vanessa? She knows you're here. Ivan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. They took the stairs 2 at a time, their footsteps echoing in the concrete chamber. Above them, the stairwell door burst open. Shouts, more footsteps. They reached the garage level and exploded through the door into the underground parking structure. The space was dimly lit, filled with rows of expensive cars belonging to the building's wealthiest residents. Ivan's vehicles were in the reserved section near the private elevator, a black sedan, an SUV, and his motorcycle. Which one? Brenda asked, running beside him. Sedan. Bulletproof glass. They sprinted across the concrete, weaving between parked cars. Brenda could hear the stairwell door slam open behind them, could hear the men entering the garage. She didn't look back. Ivan reached the sedan first, yanking open the driver's door. Get in. Brenda ran around to the passenger side just as the first bullet sparked off the concrete pillar beside her head. She ducked instinctively, stumbling. The second bullet shattered the side mirror of the car next to her. Ivan fired back 3 controlled shots that sent the gunman diving for cover. Brenda, now. She threw herself into the passenger seat. Ivan was already behind the wheel, jamming the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. A man appeared directly in front of them, weapon raised. Ivan didn't hesitate. He slammed the accelerator. The sedan surged forward with a violence that threw Brenda back against her seat. The gunman dove aside at the last second, rolling across the hood of a parked Mercedes. More gunfire erupted. Bullets hammered against the rear window the bulletproof glass held, but each impact sounded like the world ending. Spiderweb cracks bloomed across the surface. "Get down!" Ivan shouted. Brenda ducked low as Ivan whipped the wheel, tires screaming as the sedan fishtailed around a corner. The exit ramp was ahead, the barrier arm lowered. Ivan didn't slow down. The sedan hit the barrier at 40 miles per hour. The wooden arm exploded into splinters. They burst out onto the street, narrowly missing a taxi. Horns blared, brakes squealed. Ivan cut left, then right, weaving through traffic with a precision that spoke of experience. Brenda gripped the door handle, her heart trying to escape through her ribs. Behind them, a black SUV emerged from the garage. "They're following," Brenda said, voice shaking. "I know." Ivan's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. His hands were steady on the wheel, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his knuckles were white from gripping too hard. He took another hard turn, accelerating down a side street. The SUV stayed close, aggressive and relentless. A gunshot, then another. The rear window cracked further, one more hit, and it would shatter completely, bulletproof or not. Ivan slammed the brakes and jerked the wheel. The sedan spun 180 degrees, tires smoking. For a moment, they were facing the oncoming SUV directly. Ivan raised the stolen gun and fired through his own windshield. The SUV swerved violently, its driver ducking. It clipped a parked car, metal shrieking against metal, and spun out of control. Ivan was already moving again, the sedan launching forward, accelerating past the wreckage before the SUV could recover. They raced through 3 more blocks before Ivan took a sharp right into an alley, then another left, then straight for 2 blocks, then right again. Brenda lost track of the turns. Finally, Ivan pulled into an underground parking garage beneath an office building, killed the engine, and sat perfectly still. Silence. Brenda realized she was shaking. Her hands, her legs, everything trembling like she'd been submerged in ice water. She could still hear the gunshots echoing in her ears, could still feel the impact of bullets against the car. "Are you hurt?" Ivan asked quietly. She shook her head, not trusting her voice. Ivan stared straight ahead through the shattered windshield, his jaw tight, his breathing controlled. "You saved my life. You saved mine," Brenda replied. "In the garage. That shot. We're not safe yet." Ivan pulled out his phone, checking something. "This location isn't secure. We need to move again. I have a safe house 20 minutes from here. No one knows about it. Not even." He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Not even Vanessa. Brenda watched him, this man who'd been so confident, so untouchable just hours ago. Now he looked hollowed out, betrayed. Dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with violence and everything to do with broken trust. "Ivan," she said carefully. "What are you going to do?" He turned to look at her then, and his eyes were cold as winter. "I'm going to find out exactly who wants me dead. And then I'm going to make sure they regret it." The safe house was nothing like the penthouse. It sat in a quiet residential neighborhood 40 minutes outside the city, a modest 2-story home with faded blue siding and an overgrown front yard that made it blend seamlessly with the surrounding houses. No security cameras visible, no reinforced anything. Just an ordinary house on an ordinary street where no one would think to look for a man like Ivan Pontus, which was exactly the point. Ivan parked the damaged sedan in the detached garage, closing the door behind them before either of them stepped out. The silence inside felt suffocating after the chaos of the last hour. Brenda's legs nearly gave out when she stood. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind exhaustion so profound it felt like gravity had doubled. She steadied herself against the car, taking slow breaths. Ivan noticed. "Inside, you need to sit down." He led her through the garage door into a small kitchen that looked like it hadn't been used in months. Everything was clean but sparse. A table with 2 chairs, basic appliances, cabinets that probably held canned goods, and little else. Brenda sank into one of the chairs, her hands still trembling slightly. Ivan moved to the sink, filled 2 glasses with water, and set one in front of her. "Drink," he said. She did, the cold water grounding her. Ivan drank his standing, staring out the small window above the sink at the backyard. From here, he looked smaller somehow. Less like the untouchable Mafia boss, and more like a man trying to process the fact that the woman he'd loved had sold him to executioners. The silence stretched between them for a long moment. "Thank you," Ivan said finally, not turning around. For what you did, for warning me, for running with me, for—" He paused, his jaw working. "For not leaving me to die. I couldn't," Brenda said quietly. "I couldn't just walk away. Most people would have. I'm not most people." Ivan turned then, leaning back against the counter, studying her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. 8 years you've worked for me. I never really saw you. Not really. You were just there. Part of the furniture. It should have stung. It didn't. Brenda had been invisible on purpose. That was the job, she said. No. Ivan shook his head. It was my failure. I was so focused on watching for threats from outside that I missed everything happening right in front of me. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Vanessa played me perfectly, and you, the woman I never paid attention to, you're the only one who saw it coming. Brenda set down her glass. I didn't know for certain. Not until 3 days ago. What happened 3 days ago? She told him. Everything. The overheard phone call, the mentions of doses and timelines, Vanessa mapping the apartment, the men arriving this morning. Every detail she'd collected while staying invisible, staying silent, waiting for the moment when silence would cost him his life. Ivan listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When she finished, he was gripping the counter so hard his knuckles had gone white. She was poisoning me, he said, voice hollow. The headaches, the dizziness, the weakness. He pressed a hand to his temple. I thought I was just tired, stressed. She told me I was working too hard. Small doses, Brenda said, enough to weaken you, make you vulnerable, so when the time came, I'd be too sick to fight back. Ivan's laugh was bitter, efficient, I'll give her that. He pushed off from the counter and began pacing the small kitchen like a caged animal. 5 months. 5 months she was in my home, in my bed, in my life, learning everything, reporting everything, planning this. He slammed his fist against the wall. How did I not see it? Because you wanted to trust her, Brenda said gently. Because you were tired of being alone. That's not an excuse. No, but it's the truth. Ivan stopped pacing, his back to her. His shoulders were rigid, his breathing controlled but shallow. I loved her. Or I thought I did. I let her in. Let my guard down. And she, his voice cracked. She was never real. None of it was real. Brenda stood, crossing to where he stood. She kept a respectful distance, but close enough that he could hear her clearly. What she did, that's on her. Not you. You don't get to blame yourself for someone else's evil. Don't I? Ivan turned, and the pain in his eyes was raw. I'm not some naive fool. I've built my life on reading people, on knowing when someone's lying, and she fooled me completely. That makes me weak. No, Brenda said firmly. That makes you human. Human gets you killed in my world. You're not dead. The words hung between them. Simple. Undeniable. Ivan stared at her, something shifting behind his eyes. Because of you. Because I paid attention when you couldn't, Brenda corrected. That's what loyalty looks like. It's not weakness. It's survival. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face like he was seeing her for the first time. Why did you stay? You could have run, could have saved yourself. Why risk your life for mine? Brenda had asked herself that question a dozen times in the last 3 days. The honest answer was complicated, a mix of principle, stubborn loyalty, and something deeper she didn't fully understand. Because you were decent to me, she said finally. In 8 years, you never treated me like I was beneath you. You paid me fairly, respected my space, trusted me with your home. She paused. And because no one deserves to be murdered by someone they love. Ivan's expression softened, the anger and pain giving way to something that looked like gratitude. You could have been killed today, because of me, but I wasn't. They know who you are now. They'll come after you too. I know. You can't go back to your apartment, can't contact anyone you know. Your life just became as dangerous as mine. Brenda nodded slowly, the weight of that reality settling over her. She'd known it the moment she'd grabbed Ivan in the hallway, the moment she'd chosen to save him instead of herself. There was no going back now. Then I guess we figure out what's next together, she said. Ivan looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. First, I need to know exactly who's behind this. Vanessa's working for someone. Someone who wants me dead badly enough to plant a spy in my life for 5 months. How do we find out? I have resources, contacts Vanessa doesn't know about, systems she couldn't access. He moved toward the stairs. I have a secure setup in the basement. Give me an hour and I'll have answers. He started up the stairs, then paused, turning back. Brenda? Yes? Are you a spy too? The question should have hurt. Should have felt like an insult after everything. But Brenda understood. Trust had to be rebuilt from scratch. No, she said simply. I'm just the maid who decided you deserved to live. Ivan held her gaze, searching for deception. Finally, he nodded. Good. Because I'm going to need you. The basement was exactly what Brenda expected from a man like Ivan Pontes. Concrete walls, no windows, a single entrance with a reinforced steel door, and in the center of the room, a desk with 3 monitors, a secure server, and enough encrypted hardware to run a small intelligence operation. Ivan had been down here for 2 hours now. Brenda had stayed upstairs, making coffee from the meager supplies in the kitchen, trying to process everything that had happened, but eventually, curiosity and concern had drawn her downstairs. She found him hunched over the center monitor, his face illuminated by the harsh blue glow. He looked exhausted, haunted, but his eyes were sharp, focused with the intensity of a man hunting for truth. Anything? She asked quietly. Ivan didn't look up. Everything. He pulled up a file, dozens of documents, photographs, phone records. Vanessa Klein. Except that's not her real name. It's Vanessa Kozlov, born in Moscow. Moved to the States 15 years ago with a spotless identity that took me 3 hours to crack. He clicked through images. A younger Vanessa with different hair. Vanessa standing beside men Brenda didn't recognize. Vanessa in locations that looked nothing like art galleries. She's not an art acquisition specialist, Ivan continued, his voice flat. She's a freelance operative, works for whoever pays the most. Infiltration specialist. She's done this before, gotten close to targets, gathered intelligence, set them up for elimination. Brenda moved closer, staring at the screen. How many times? At least 4 that I can confirm. 2 in Europe, 1 in South America, 1 in New York. Ivan pulled up another file: obituaries, news clippings about mysterious deaths. All wealthy men, all with ties to organized crime, all killed in circumstances that looked like accidents or internal conflicts. She's a professional, Brenda said quietly. The best. Ivan's jaw tightened, and I walked right into it. She studied me for weeks before we even met. The gallery opening wasn't a coincidence. She engineered it. Knew I'd be there. Knew exactly how to approach me, what to say, how to make me believe it was organic. He opened another file: communications records. She's been reporting to someone called the broker for the entire 5 months. Every detail, my routines, my security, my vulnerabilities, everything. Brenda scanned the messages. They were clinical, detached. Subject shows increased trust levels. Security protocols identified and cataloged. Emotional attachment confirmed proceeding to final phase. It was like reading a hunter's journal tracking prey. Who's the broker? Brenda asked. That's where it gets interesting. Ivan pulled up another screen. Financial records this time. The money for the job came from a shell corporation based in the Cayman Islands. It took me an hour to trace it back through 6 different accounts. He leaned back in his chair, his expression dark. It leads to the Constantine family. Brenda's stomach dropped. Even she knew that name. The Constantines ran half the illegal operations on the East Coast. They'd been rivals with Ivan's organization for years, a Cold War that occasionally turned hot, but had never escalated into full conflict, until now. Alexei Constantine, Ivan said, pulling up a photo of a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, head of the family. I've had dealings with him, mostly territorial agreements, mutual boundaries. We've had our tensions, but nothing that warranted this. He gestured at the screen. This is personal. This is a declaration of war. Why now? Brenda asked. Ivan was quiet for a moment, scrolling through more files. 3 months ago, I acquired a shipping contract that the Constantines wanted. It was worth millions, but more than that, it gave me access to routes they'd been using for years. I didn't take it to hurt them, I took it because it was good business. He clicked through emails between Constantine associates. But Alexei took it personally, saw it as disrespect, an insult, and rather than coming at me directly, he hired Vanessa to destroy me from the inside. They wanted you dead, Brenda said, but they also wanted you humiliated, broken. Exactly. Ivan's voice was bitter. What better way to destroy a man like me than to prove he could be fooled by something as simple as a woman's smile? To show the world that Ivan Pontes, the man who trusts no one, could be led to slaughter by his own heart. He pulled up more files, surveillance photos of Vanessa, meeting with known Constantine operatives. Bank transfers, showing payments at regular intervals throughout the 5 months. Communications confirming the hit planned for today. The assassins in the apartment were Constantine's men, Ivan said. Vanessa was supposed to keep me calm, keep me in place until they could execute me cleanly. Then she'd disappear. The Constantines would claim someone from my own organization turned on me. My death would look like internal betrayal, not outside interference. Divide your people, Brenda said. Make them suspicious of each other. Collapse my operation from within while they took over my territory. Ivan nodded. It's brilliant, really. If it had worked, they would have destroyed me without firing a shot in public. He closed the files and turned to face Brenda. The exhaustion was gone now, replaced by cold, calculated fury. But it didn't work. Because you heard a phone call they didn't know you were listening to. Brenda leaned against the desk, processing everything. What happens now? Now? Ivan stood, his expression hardening into something dangerous. Now I make sure Alexei Konstantin regrets the day he decided to come after me. You're going to kill him. No. Ivan's smile was sharp, predatory. Death is too quick, too clean. I'm going to dismantle everything he's built, piece by piece. I'm going to take his territory, his money, his reputation. I'm going to make him watch while everything he values crumbles. And Vanessa? Ivan's expression went dark. Vanessa is still out there, still dangerous. She knows I survived. She knows you helped me. Which means she's already planning her next move. He pulled up one final screen, a tracking application showing a single blinking dot moving through the city. I planted a tracker in her bracelet 2 months ago. Standard precaution. She doesn't know it's there. The dot was stationary now, located at an address in the financial district. She's at the Constantine building, Ivan said. Probably reporting her failure. Probably trying to salvage the operation. Brenda stared at the dot, her heart rate picking up. You're going after her. I need to know everything. Every detail of the plan. Every person involved. Every contingency they prepared. Ivan's voice was ice. And Vanessa is going to tell me, whether she wants to or not. She'll be protected. Konstantin won't leave her exposed. I know. Ivan moved toward a locked cabinet in the corner, pulling out a key, which is why I'm not going in alone. He opened the cabinet, revealing weapons, handguns, rifles, tactical gear, everything needed for a small war. I have people I can call, he continued. People Vanessa doesn't know about. People who've been waiting for my signal. He began selecting items methodically. I'm going to extract her. Bring her somewhere secure, and then I'm going to get every answer I need. Brenda watched him arm himself, transformation happening before her eyes. The wounded man from an hour ago was gone. This was the Ivan Pontes the city feared. Cold, precise, unstoppable. What do you need me to do? She asked. Ivan paused, looking at her. Stay here. Stay safe. This part. No. He blinked. Brenda. You said yourself. They know who I am now. They'll come for me eventually. And I didn't save your life just to sit in a basement waiting to be found. She stepped forward. I'm in this, all the way, so tell me what you need. Ivan studied her for a long moment. Then slowly, he nodded. All right, he said. Then we do this together. The Constantine building was a glass tower in the financial district. 30 floors of legitimate business operations, concealing the empire underneath. Ivan had been inside twice before, both times for tense negotiations that had ended with handshakes instead of gunfire. Tonight would be different. They sat in a nondescript van 3 blocks away, watching the building through a live feed from cameras Ivan's team had positioned hours earlier. His people had moved fast, 6 men he trusted absolutely, all of them veterans of situations exactly like this. Brenda watched the monitors, her hands steady now despite the fear coiling in her stomach. She'd insisted on coming, and Ivan had reluctantly agreed, but only if she stayed in the van. You're my eyes, he'd said. If something goes wrong, you run. You disappear. You survive. She'd nodded, knowing she wouldn't run. Not anymore. Target still on the 18th floor. One of Ivan's men reported from his position across the street. Conference room. 3 guards outside. Konstantin's with her. Ivan studied the feed, his expression unreadable. Vanessa sat at a conference table, her posture relaxed despite the failure of her mission. Alexei Konstantin stood near the window, gesturing as he spoke. They looked comfortable together. Familiar. How long has she worked for him? Brenda asked quietly. According to the records, this was her first job for Konstantin directly, Ivan replied. But they've used the broker before. It's possible they've crossed paths. On screen, Vanessa laughed at something Constantine said. The sound made Ivan's jaw tighten. She's not afraid, Brenda observed. She should be. Ivan clicked his radio. All teams, status check. Team 1, in position. Team 2, ready. Team 3, set. Ivan's plan was precise. Create a diversion on the ground floor, draw security down, extract Vanessa during the chaos. Clean, efficient, minimal casualties. He wasn't here to start a war. Just to take back what belonged to him. Execute in 30 seconds, Ivan ordered. Brenda watched the timer count down. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was insane. They were walking into enemy territory to kidnap someone under the protection of one of the most dangerous men in the city. The timer hit 0. On the ground floor feed, smoke grenades detonated in the lobby. Alarms shrieked. Security rushed toward the commotion. Ivan's team moved like shadows through the service entrance, ascending the back stairwell in tactical formation. Everything went according to plan for exactly 4 minutes. Then Vanessa stood up in the conference room, checked her phone, and smiled directly at the camera. She knows, Brenda breathed. Ivan's eyes narrowed. That's impossible. Those cameras are... She knows, Brenda repeated, watching as Vanessa said something to Constantine. The older man's expression shifted from irritation to amusement. Ivan's radio crackled. Sir, we're picking up movement. Multiple hostiles converging on the stairwell. It's an ambush. Abort, Ivan said immediately. Fall back to... The conference room door opened. More guards entered, not the 3 that had been there before. 8, 10, all armed. Vanessa walked to the window, looking out at the city with the casual confidence of someone holding all the cards. She pulled out her phone, typed something, and set it on the table. Brenda's phone buzzed. She looked down, her blood running cold. A text from an unknown number. Did you really think I wouldn't be ready for this, Ivan? She's been tracking us, Brenda said. This whole time she's been... Waiting for me to come for her, Ivan finished, his voice tight with controlled rage. This wasn't extraction. This was bait. Another text appeared. Come upstairs. 18th floor. Alone. Or I'll send my people to the safe house. The blue one with the overgrown yard. Should I describe the kitchen too? Ivan's face went white. She knew about the safe house. The one location he'd thought was completely secure. She's bluffing, one of his men said over the radio. No, Ivan replied quietly. She's not. Brenda grabbed his arm. You can't go up there. It's suicide. If I don't, she'll send people to the house. She'll kill everyone in this van. He stopped, looking at Brenda with an expression that was part anger, part something that looked dangerously like despair. She's thought of everything. Again. Another text. 5 minutes, Ivan. After that, people start dying, starting with Brenda. The van went silent. Ivan stared at the phone, his hands trembling slightly the first time Brenda had seen him lose control. She's going to kill me the moment I walk in that room. Then don't go. If I don't. Then we all run, Brenda interrupted. Right now. Disappear before she can. I can't run from this. Ivan's voice was hollow. She'll never stop. Constantine will never stop. They've already proven they can find me anywhere. The only way this ends is if I face her. He stood, checking his weapon, his movements mechanical. Resigned. Ivan, please. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment she saw the man beneath the armor, tired, hurt, still reeling from the betrayal that had shattered his carefully constructed world. I loved her, he said quietly. Even knowing what she is, what she's done, part of me still. He didn't finish. That's what she's counting on, Brenda said. She wants you emotional, compromised. That's her weapon. I know. Then don't give it to her. Ivan was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and typed a response. Coming up, alone. You touch anyone in this van, and Constantine loses his shipment routes tonight. I've got dead man switches on every account. You know I'm not bluffing. He hit send, then looked at his team. If I'm not back in 20 minutes, activate Protocol 7. Scatter and regroup at the secondary location. Sir, that's an order. Ivan moved toward the van door. Brenda stepped in front of him. Let me come with you. No. She expects you alone. But she doesn't know I'm here. I could, Brenda. Ivan's voice was gentle but firm. You've done enough. You've saved my life twice. I won't let you risk it again for my mistakes. This isn't about mistakes. Yes, it is. He smiled sadly. I let her in. I trusted her. I loved her. And now I have to face the consequences of that. Alone. He stepped around her, opened the van door, and disappeared into the night. Brenda watched him go, her heart sinking. She turned back to the monitors, watching as Ivan entered the building, took the elevator to the 18th floor. The doors opened. Guards surrounded him immediately, weapons drawn. Ivan raised his hand slowly, letting them disarm him. They searched him roughly, professionally, then stepped aside. Vanessa stood at the end of the hallway, backlit by the conference room lights. She looked exactly as she had in the penthouse that morning, beautiful, poised, completely in control. Ivan walked toward her. Brenda could see his shoulders rigid, his jaw tight. They faced each other in the doorway. Vanessa said something Brenda couldn't hear. Ivan replied. Then Vanessa smiled, warm, affectionate, devastating, and reached up to touch his face. Ivan didn't pull away. Brenda's stomach twisted. "No," she whispered, "don't." But Ivan was leaning into the touch, his eyes closing briefly, his expression crumbling into something that looked like pain and longing and terrible, destructive hope. Vanessa was still his weakness, and she knew it. Ivan knew he was being a fool. He knew it the moment Vanessa's hand touched his cheek, knew it when she smiled at him with that same warmth that had made him believe, for 5 perfect months, that he could be more than what he was. But knowing didn't stop the ache in his chest. "You came," Vanessa said softly, her thumb brushing his jawline. "I wasn't sure you would. You threatened my people. I knew you'd care about that." She tilted her head, studying him. "You always did care too much about loyalty. It's your greatest weakness." Ivan forced himself to speak. "Why? Why what? Why any of it? The gallery, the dinners, the mornings in my kitchen. His voice caught. "Was any of it real?" Vanessa's smile didn't falter. "Does it matter?" "Yes." She considered this, then gestured to the conference room behind her. "Come inside. Let's talk properly. Just us." Every instinct screamed trap. But Ivan had known this was a trap before he'd stepped into the elevator. He'd come anyway, because running would mean spending the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, and because, God help him, he needed to hear her answer. He followed her inside. The conference room was empty now. Constantine and his guards had stepped out, giving them privacy, or the illusion of it. Ivan spotted at least 3 cameras, probably microphones too. Vanessa moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. "You know what I like about you, Ivan? You're predictable. Even now, after everything, you came here because you needed closure, needed to understand. Is that so wrong?" "It's human." She turned to face him. "And humanity is always exploitable. Is that what you did? Exploit me?" "I did my job." Vanessa's voice was matter-of-fact. "I was hired to get close to you, learn your vulnerabilities, and facilitate your elimination. I did exactly that, for 5 months. It takes time to earn real trust. You're not an easy mark, Ivan. I had to be thorough." He stepped closer, searching her face for anything that might be genuine. "The morning you made me breakfast, when you told me about your childhood, when you cried watching that movie, was any of it real?" Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled again, and this time there was something almost sad in it. "The best lies are wrapped in truth. Yes, my childhood was difficult. Yes, I cried at that movie. But I cry at every sentimental thing. It's a useful trait in my line of work. And the rest? What do you want me to say, Ivan? That I fell in love with you? That somewhere between the surveillance reports and the poisoned coffee, I developed real feelings?" She laughed softly. "Would that make you feel better? I want the truth. The truth is complicated." Vanessa moved closer, her voice dropping to something intimate. "You were good to me. Kind, even. There were moments when I almost regretted taking this job. Moments when I wondered what it would be like if we'd met differently. If I were someone else." Ivan's heart clenched. But I'm not someone else. I'm exactly who I am. And this," she gestured between them, "was never going to end any other way." She was right. He'd known it before coming here. But hearing her say it still felt like a knife twisting in his chest. "Constantine paid well," Vanessa continued, "and the job gave me access to circles I've been trying to infiltrate for years. You were a means to an end, a very lucrative end. So that's it. Money. Money, reputation, future opportunities." She shrugged elegantly. "I'm a professional, Ivan. I don't do this for passion. I do it because I'm very, very good at it." Ivan stared at her, this woman he'd held, trusted, loved. She looked exactly the same as she had that first night at the gallery. Beautiful, charming, utterly unrepentant. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "Now?" Vanessa tilted her head. "Now you make a choice. You can try to kill me, which will result in Constantine's guards killing you. You can try to leave, which will result in the same outcome. Or you accept the situation. Walk away. Live your life knowing that you were outplayed, but not destroyed. Constantine gets the message that you're not worth the continued effort. Everyone goes home alive. You think I'll just walk away? I think you're smart enough to recognize a losing position. Vanessa stepped closer, her hand finding his chest. I don't want you dead, Ivan. I never did. That was Constantine's addition, not mine. I argued for a gentler resolution. Her touch made his skin crawl now. He grabbed her wrist, pulling her hand away. Don't. Still hurts? She didn't pull away from his grip. That's good. It means you're still human. Still capable of feeling something. You don't get to touch me anymore. No, she agreed. I suppose I don't. Ivan released her wrist and stepped back. His mind was racing, calculating. The cameras were watching. Constantine's people were outside. This whole conversation was theater designed to break him down, make him emotional, compromised. But Vanessa had made one critical mistake. She'd assumed he came here alone. I have a question, Ivan said. Of course you do. The safe house. How did you find it? Vanessa smiled. I had someone following you from the moment you escaped the penthouse. You led them right to it. Really, Ivan? Did you think I wouldn't have contingencies? And right now? Who's watching it? 2 of Constantine's best men, armed, waiting for my signal. Ivan nodded slowly. Then he pulled out his phone and pressed a button. Vanessa's expression shifted the first genuine surprise he'd seen from her. What did you? The conference room door burst open. Not Constantine's guards, Ivan's team, moving with lethal precision. They'd been in the building the whole time, waiting for his signal. The ambush he'd walked into hadn't been Vanessa's. It had been his. You, Vanessa started. I learned from the best, Ivan interrupted. You taught me that humanity is exploitable. So I used mine as bait. His men secured the room in seconds. Constantine's guards tried to respond, but Ivan's people had already neutralized them in the hallway. The element of surprise and superior planning had won. Vanessa didn't run, didn't fight. She just stood there, reassessing, recalculating. The safe house? She asked. Empty. Has been for 2 hours. We moved locations after you sent that first text. Ivan stepped closer. You're good, Vanessa, but you made one mistake. You assumed I'd come here broken. Desperate. Easy to manipulate. And you're not? Oh, I am, Ivan admitted. But I'm also not stupid. You taught me that love is a weapon, so I used it. I let you think you still had power over me. Let you think I was here for closure. What are you here for? Information, names, every detail of Constantine's operation, every person involved in the plan to kill me. His voice went cold. And you're going to give it to me. Vanessa's smile returned, sharp and dangerous. Or what? You'll torture me? Kill me? You're not that man, Ivan. No, he agreed. But I know people who are. And unlike you, I don't enjoy cruelty. I just recognize when it's necessary. For the first time, real fear flickered across Vanessa's face. Ivan gestured to his men. Take her. Secure location. Make sure she's comfortable. He paused. For now. As they led her toward the door, Vanessa looked back at him. You're making a mistake. Constantine will. Constantine is about to have much bigger problems than me, Ivan interrupted. See, while you were planning my death, I was planning his dismantling. Every account, every route, every ally. By morning he'll have nothing. Vanessa stared at him, finally understanding. You played me. I learned from the best, Ivan repeated. She laughed, then genuine, almost admiring. Maybe I did care about you. Just a little. I'll never know if that's true, Ivan said quietly. And that's your punishment. Living with the knowledge that you could have had something real, but you chose this instead. They took her away. Ivan stood alone in the conference room, his hands shaking now that the performance was over. He'd won, but victory felt hollow. His phone buzzed. A text from Brenda. Are you all right? He looked at those 3 words for a long moment. Then he typed back. Yes. Coming down. It wasn't entirely true. But it was close enough. The sunrise found Ivan standing on the roof of a different safe house, this one in the industrial district, surrounded by warehouses and forgotten buildings where no one looked twice at strangers. He hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Vanessa's smile, heard her voice, felt her hand on his face. The door behind him opened. Brenda stepped out, carrying 2 cups of coffee. You should rest, she said, handing him one. Can't. Won't, you mean? Ivan took the coffee, appreciating its warmth. Is it done? Your people finished the transfers an hour ago. Constantine's accounts are empty. His routes are compromised. His allies are abandoning ship. Brenda leaned against the railing beside him. By noon, he'll be bankrupt and alone. Good. And Vanessa? Secure. My interrogators will start in an hour. She'll tell us everything eventually. Ivan's voice was flat, emotionless. Then we'll decide what to do with her. Brenda studied his profile. You could let her go. No, she can't hurt you anymore. You've won. She tried to kill me, Brenda. Poisoned me. Set me up for execution. Let her go and she'll do it to someone else. I know. But I also know what keeping her will do to you. Ivan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I almost gave her another chance. When she touched my face in that conference room, I almost... He stopped, swallowing hard. Part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to think that maybe, somewhere in all the lies, there was something real. That's not weakness. That's humanity. Humanity almost got me killed. No, Brenda corrected. Trust in the wrong person almost got you killed. There's a difference. Ivan turned to look at her. This woman who'd saved his life twice now, who'd risked everything despite having no obligation to do so. Why did you really stay? The truth this time. Brenda was quiet, considering. Because 8 years ago, I took a job working for a dangerous man. And every day, I waited for him to show his true nature, to be cruel, or violent, or treat me like I was disposable. And you never did. You were isolated, yes. Paranoid, absolutely. But you were never cruel. You treated me like a person. Paid me what I was worth. Respected my boundaries. She smiled slightly. So when I realized someone was trying to kill you, I couldn't just walk away. Because despite everything you are, you didn't deserve to die for wanting to be loved. Ivan felt something crack open in his chest. Something that had been locked down tight for so long he'd forgotten it was there. I never even asked about your life, he said. Your family, your dreams. 8 years and I knew nothing about you. That was the job. I was supposed to be invisible. No one should have to be invisible. Brenda met his eyes. I chose it, just like you chose your walls. We both built prisons for different reasons. They stood in silence, watching the sun climb higher over the city. Below them, the world was waking up, people heading to work, living ordinary lives, unaware of the violence and betrayal that had played out in the shadows. What happens now? Brenda asked. After Constantine is finished, after Vanessa talks, after everything is handled? Ivan considered this. I rebuild. Smarter this time, more carefully. And the walls, higher than ever. That's not living, Ivan. That's just surviving. Surviving kept me alive. And look how lonely it made you. Brenda's voice was gentle but firm. Lonely enough that when someone showed you kindness, you ignored every instinct you had just to feel it for a while longer. She was right. He knew she was right. I don't know how to do it differently, he admitted. Neither do I. But maybe that's something we figure out together. Ivan looked at her, surprised. Together? You said it yourself, they know who I am now. I can't go back to my old life. Can't just find another job cleaning houses for dangerous men. She smiled wryly. Like it or not, we're bound together now. Survivors of the same disaster. I'm not good company. Neither am I. We'll manage. Something that might have been a smile touched Ivan's lips. You saved my life, Brenda. Twice. I owe you more than I can ever repay. Then stop trying to repay me and just let me stay. Let me be the person who tells you when you're being stupid, who pays attention when you can't, who reminds you that trust doesn't have to mean destruction. Ivan was quiet for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. Partners? Brenda shook it. Partners. Below them, the city continued its endless motion. Somewhere in a secure location, Vanessa sat in a room, knowing her carefully laid plans had unraveled. Somewhere across town, Constantine was discovering the true cost of underestimating his enemies. But up here, on this roof, two people who'd lived in shadows were choosing something different. Not love, not yet, maybe not ever, but something equally valuable. Trust earned through fire, loyalty proven through action, and the quiet understanding that survival means nothing if you're always alone. Ivan Pontes had built an empire on suspicion and isolation. It had protected him for years, but it had also nearly killed him, because he'd forgotten the most important lesson of all. The most dangerous threats don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they walk through your front door with a smile and a promise. And sometimes salvation comes from the people you never really saw, the ones who were there all along, invisible and watching, waiting for the moment when staying silent would cost more than speaking up. Brenda Raymond had been invisible for 8 years. She'd chosen to be seen when it mattered most, and in doing so, she'd saved more than Ivan's life. She'd reminded him that strength isn't just about walls and weapons, and never trusting anyone. Sometimes it's about recognizing when the person beside you deserves to be trusted. Even when, especially when everything else has fallen apart. The sun rose higher. They finished their coffee in silence. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Ivan Pontus didn't feel quite so alone. Thanks for sticking with this story until the very end. You're the reason these stories feel alive. If you're ready for another powerful journey, just tap the next video on your screen. And before you go, leave a quick comment and rate this story from 1 to 10. I'm excited to read your thoughts and connect with you in the comments.